Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy, brought to you today by Josh Edison and Dr. M. Denton. Hello and welcome to the Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy. I am Josh Edison, lying low in Auckland, New Zealand, and in or about Zhuhai, China, we have Dr. M. Dentith.
I was going to say that I'm living large, but actually I'm just living averagely in Zhuhai. I'm not doing anything particularly exciting. I'm not doing anything particularly unexciting. I'm living the false equivalence of doing nothing and everything at the same time.
Whereas I continue to be locked down and will be for another week and a bit yet, most likely. And
but that's mostly because of your sexual fetish rather than COVID-19.
No, it's mostly the COVID-19, to be perfectly honest, yeah. But the numbers are going down. That's what you want. They're the sort of numbers that you want down.
The number of people you're locking up in your sex dungeon, or the number of people who are suffering from COVID-19, the Delta variant?
It's not my fault they keep getting out, okay? I was sold a faulty locking mechanism, but that's beside the point. Numbers of COVID cases are trending downwards anyway. There's a bit of a spike up again yesterday, but then they're down again today, and they're lower than they were a few days ago, and that's what you want to see, basically.
Well, precisely. And I'm told potentially the spike yesterday was due to undercounting of the day prior.
Well, yeah, quite possibly. But so things are looking hopeful. Of course, the rest of the country is in level 3 lockdown. And
eating a lot of takeaways.
Basically, yeah. I mean, there are differing regulations between levels 4 and 3. But the only one that anyone cares about is that under level 3 you can get takeaways from fast food places. But at the moment, as a person on full level 4 lockdown, takeaway fast food is something I can only dream of.
It's true. Or you can start doing that thing where you try to make takeaways at home. So you try to make an equivalent of KFC. Yes. You try to make yourself a killer burger. And then you realize that even though we kind of treat fast food as being this instantaneous pleasure that's just made hoi polloi behind a counter, there is an art to making a good burger. And there is an art to deep frying fish in a flash fryer, which the average amongst us are just never going to be able to replicate.
Yes, I don't think hoi polloi means what you think it means, but you're largely correct. I can't be bothered myself. I'll just eat boring old nutritious home cooked meals until the day comes when I can run to McDonald's and say, "Give me some grease with a bit of grease on it, please." Slap it straight in my gob.
Josh, you are a Soylent Green person.
I've never denied that. Anyway, we're getting a little off topic already because this is another edition of Conspiracy Theory Masterpiece Theatre, and we're hearing from somebody new. Do we want to introduce it here or play the chime first?
Well, actually, so first of all, I do want to state I am not convinced that this paper is either a classic or a masterpiece. So if we were taking Conspiracy Masterpiece Theatre to be something which deals with the best papers, I'm not of the opinion this is one of the best papers from 2011. But it is an interesting paper. And I think it's interesting in a way which, because it's very flawed, it allows us to say some interesting things. I've used the word interesting now too many times. Some things about the literature which are worth exploring, even though to a very large extent this paper never gets talked about ever again, apart from in potted literature reviews in, say, things like my book.
And apart from right now.
Well, that's also true. But this comes after my book, unless things have got really timey-wimey between when we are starting the recording and where we are now.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't rule that out, but maybe you better just play that chime and we get into things as quickly as possible, just in case the very fabric of space and time dissolves as we're recording.
No, precisely. I can see dinosaur-shaped human beings wandering through my office, so we better get onto it right now.
Welcome to Conspiracy Theory Masterpiece Theatre.
It's possibly even worse than that. Those dinosaur-shaped human beings have gone human-shaped. The mutations are out of control.
Oh, see, I think you say that dinosaur-shaped human being is in fact your mum.
I think we've both done better your mum jabs than that, to be honest.
It's true. It has been a long time since you've done your mother joke.
Yeah, if we're going to, we should probably save up for a good one. Anyway, maybe that opportunity will arise this very episode, but not right now, because what right now we are doing is introducing the paper we're going to be talking about today, which is Counterfact Conspiracy Theories by Susan Feldman, published in the International Journal of Applied Philosophy in 2011. Now, who is Susan Feldman?
I have no idea.
Is this her only contribution to the literature?
As far as I'm aware, I mean, she has written other things on conspiracy theory. I have not come across them. And given I kind of know the literature back to front, I'd be very surprised if there's any further work from her in the field. It's possible there are an awful lot of journals which aren't indexed by the standard search engine, so it is possible there is work out there which I'm completely unaware of. But at the same time, as far as I'm aware, this is Susan's only contribution to conspiracy theory.
And yes, I think despite the fact that you may have overused it already, the word interesting is a good descriptor of the paper, as is short and to the point, which is how I like these papers. So I guess we might as well just get straight into it. It's one of those papers that has a good old abstract, which always takes the work out of exactly how to introduce it. You can just read out what it says, and I'm going to do that right now. Recent philosophical treatment of conspiracy theories supposes them all to be explanatory, thus overlooking those conspiracy theories whose major purpose is the assertion of hidden facts rather than the explanation of accepted facts. I call this variety of non-explanatory conspiracy theories counterfact theories. In this paper, through the use of examples, including the Obama birth certificate conspiracy theory, I uncover the distinctive reasoning pattern and dialectical strategy of counterfact theories, highlighting their epistemic flaws. First interesting thing, the Obama birtherism.
A topic which was really, really big and then just completely disappeared. Which is actually kind of fascinating.
Disappear, but did fizzle away, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, to my mind, it's fascinating for the sheer fact that it was kind of an attack vector being used by Republicans against Obama, often being laundered through third-party, at the time, candidates like Donald J. Trump. And it disappeared in the way that attacks against the Clintons didn't. So to a large extent, when you start looking at Republican rhetoric about the problems with the Democratic Party, most of them are still focused on Bill Clinton's time as Premier of the United States of America, with Obama kind of being the hidden Clinton candidate that, he was really just a Clinton in disguise. The Republicans are so focused on the Clinton years that birtherism has kind of disappeared with her emails and thus the extension his tenure being kind of the major attack vector for Republicans even to this day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is true, that certainly once Obama was out of office, nobody really seemed to care about his birth certificate anymore, and yet people still make references to Hillary Clinton, even though she lost to Donald Trump like 5 years ago now. But anyway, we'll see. We'll get into the birtherism as we go through this paper. But it starts off, as many of these papers do, and as all good philosophical papers should do, I think, with a bit of definition. So it starts at the very beginning. In this paper, I highlight and explore a subgroup of conspiracy theories which I call counterfact conspiracy theories, or CFCTs. Like all conspiracy theories, counterfact theories assert the existence of a conspiracy. Unlike most conspiracy theories examined by philosophers and social scientists, the assertion of a conspiracy is not provided as an explanation of historical events. The distinctive feature of counterfact theories is their assertion of counterfacts, claims of fact which run contrary to accepted factual claims and their evidence. And then we get into the good old what's a conspiracy theory, and goes straight into Brian L. Keeley's definition. A proposed explanation of some historical event or events in terms of the significant causal agency of a relatively small group of persons, the conspirators, acting in secret. And then we take a swing pretty much straight away into David Cody territory when she starts saying, of course, the problem with that is that when we say conspiracy theory, we tend to think it's malign, And when we talk about conspiracy theories, we generally assume that they're opposed to an official theory, and so straight away goes to Bacon that particular definition that conspiracy theories are for sinister purposes and are counter to an official theory. And it's all just kind of taken as written. She basically ends up saying, in order to distinguish conspiracy theories from accounts involving conspiracies, we can merge Cody's two definitions, one which focuses on the element of conspiracy, the other on counter-narratives. Combining this gives us a conspiracy theory is a proposed explanation of events contrary to an officially sanctioned alternative involving the causal agency of a group of agents working together in secret, often or usually for a sinister purpose. And she doesn't really go into why we need to distinguish conspiracy theories from accounts involving conspiracies, but it just seems to be kind of taken as read if you go for the kind of not Socratic, Aristotelian, here's what we say when we talk about conspiracy theories thing.
Now, I always have a bit of an issue with any definition which uses what we might take to be a weasel word like often or usually. So, because here's my definition, and sometimes it applies to this thing, and sometimes it applies to that thing. These are words that often make it very difficult to work out whether we're looking at an exceptional case or an ordinary case.
And, I don't even think it needs the Cody editions anyway, because it's the explanation of historical facts part of it that she's really most interested in. So adding those extra little things on it, I don't think it really adds much anyway. But at any rate, after the definitions, Susan Feldman, I don't know, is she a Dr. Feldman? Is she a professor? I've got that problem again. It never seems to give titles.
I mean, I am assuming it's Dr. Feldman. Just do the whole Feldman claims. Let's work with the whole last name thing.
Then I assume I'm discussing a paper that's been written by dead British comedian Marty Feldman, and that's just gonna really throw me off my game. But anyway,
we'll get to his contribution to conspiracy theory later on in the series.
Yeah. At any rate, the name Michael Barkun comes up in the paper at this point. Now, this is another name that I don't think we've heard before. Who is Michael Barkun, and why would Feldman be introducing him at this point?
So he's a political scientist at Syracuse University. He wrote a very popular book, A Culture of Conspiracy, Apocalyptic Visions in Contemporary America. I believe it's into its second edition now. And in it, there is a taxonomy of conspiracy theory.
He's gone.
You're back?
You're back. Yep, that was just a quick little one.
Yep. I'll just put a little sound effect in here. In his book, he has a taxonomy, and in his taxonomy, he distinguishes between basically a whole set of different types of conspiracy theories: event conspiracy theories, systemic conspiracy theories, and super conspiracies, which should also be super conspiracy theories. And he uses this to kind of diagnose the problem with particular types of conspiracy theory, which is, I think, why Feldman uses it here. Because Barkun uses his taxonomy to make kind of claims that certain conspiracy theories are sensible and certain conspiracy theories are insensible, and that they make grandiose claims which just cannot be substantiated by any kind of evidence. They're too big and they're too grand. The problem with Barkun is that it's kind of built into his discussion of conspiracy theories that conspiracy theories are irrational, because he takes it that conspiracy theories are the product of a conspiracist worldview. And he takes it that a conspiracist worldview implies a universe governed by design rather than by randomness. The emphasis on design manifests itself in three principles found virtually in every conspiracy theory. Point the first, nothing happens by accident. Point the second, nothing is as it seems. And point the third, everything is connected. So he takes it, if you believe conspiracy theories, you suffer from a conspiracist worldview, and people who suffer from a conspiracist worldview believe that everything happens for a reason and all events in the world are connected, which is why I've kind of taken again Barkun and his typology. It builds in the assumption that conspiracy theories are irrational, and I think it's problematic to start from that starting point because it does kind of affect everything you do analytically afterwards.
And I think the assumption that conspiracy theories come from a conspiracist worldview doesn't really seem to be borne out by what we see. A lot of people will latch onto a single conspiracy theory, and maybe even if the logical implication of that conspiracy theory, when you really look at it, is that yes, maybe the entire world is a grand conspiracy, but they certainly don't seem to think that way. You know, that your anti-vaxxers or what have you, a great many of them, I don't think, believe that Freemasons run the country and lizard people and Illuminati and New World Orders and what have you. They've just got this one conspiracy theory, and yeah, maybe if you really forced them to tease it out, they would have to concede that there are, you know, large powers at work or something. But just in and of themselves, yeah, I wouldn't say that they would say certainly that they hold a conspiracist worldview. But at any rate, Barkun says that, and Feldman's following his definitions, which are good because, as you say, one of the things he distinguishes between is event conspiracy theories and systemic conspiracy theories that assert the existence and activities of hidden, powerful, long-term, and often vast networks of conspirators whose agents and activities can be responsible for much of world history. So looking at this, Feldman says, Barkun's taxonomy allows us to see that some conspiracy theories are not explanatory. However, there are some non-explanatory conspiracy theories which do not fit the systemic pattern. These non-explanatory theories assert counterfacts. They claim facts which run contrary to accepted and authorized beliefs and maintain that knowledge of these counterfacts is suppressed by conspiracy. Let us call these theories counterfact conspiracy theories. The aim of CFCTs is to establish counterfacts and uncover the conspiracy hiding them from general view. As previously noted, CFCTs, like systemic theories, assert hidden facts rather than explain already accepted events. However, the hidden facts that systemic theories assert involve the existence of conspiracies, while counterfact theories invoke conspiracies as a means of hiding counterfacts. And she gives examples at this point of the likes of Obama birther theories, as she said she was going to, and UFO theories as examples of people who are asserting that there are these facts that are counter to what we believe. Mainstream society believes that UFOs and aliens probably don't exist, but these theories are saying actually no, counter to what you believe, aliens do exist and have been visiting Earth, and there's evidence of it. And you may believe that Barack Obama is eligible, or was, I suppose, eligible to become president of the United States, but actually this theory is introducing these counterfacts that no, it turns out that he was ineligible. And then the conspiracy theories come in as to how to dare I say it, explain why these counterfacts are not the commonly accepted facts.
So my question here is, aren't these just conspiracy theories about claims of disinformation? Why are we using this weird term counterfact when there's an existing term which is, you believe a large amount of disinformation in the world, you are disinformed. The reality is, why talk about counterfacts rather than talk about disinformation?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, as we'll see as we go through this, my problem with it, and I assume yours as well, is that this seems to be a distinction that doesn't really need to be made, and there isn't a lot to be gained by making it. But let's see as we carry on through it. Based on this definition, Feldman says that this provides us with a rough two-step schema typical of any counterfact conspiracy theory. 1, assertion of counterfacts, and 2, invocation of a cover-up conspiracy. There is some explanation. The conspiracy clause 2 explains the suppression of the asserted counterfacts in 1. In this case, it explains how this alien non-native born other, still referring to the Obama birther theories, was able to trick the American people into believing he was eligible to be president. Unlike an explanatory theory, however, the primary purpose of the counterfact theory is not to explain, but to put forward the counterfacts. And then she compares this to, say, 9/11 truth theories, because obviously it's still 2011. There's no getting away from 9/11 in conspiracy theory literature. So compares it with that case where she says that the point is that, or the difference is, that there is an accepted fact that the theories are providing an alternative explanation for. So she says 9/11 truth explanations provide alternative casual explanations of the destruction. In contrast, the birther conspiracy view interjects into public discourse its own set of counterfacts and acknowledges no uncontested facts relevant to the issue. Which, I mean, already is starting to seem a little bit murky, and almost sort of just on that definition of it, it kind of sounds a little bit like it's not so much you've got a different kind of conspiracy theory, it's you've got a theory which has a conspiracy theory as part of it. The conspiracy theory bit is explaining the counterfacty stuff, but the counterfacty stuff isn't necessarily the conspiracy theory itself.
I find her examples here to be very confounding, because I'm not actually seeing a salient difference between 9/11 conspiracy theories and Obama birther conspiracy theories. Her claim is that somehow people who believe in any account of 9/11 have some kind of shared factual basis and disagree only on some details, whilst people who believe in the birther hypothesis have to believe contrary to what non-birthers believe. And yet, I think it's all a matter of description. It is true that to a very large extent, 9/11 conspiracy theorists, whether they are truthers or outside job hypothesis holders, agree about a certain number of facts of that day. I.e., the event occurred on September the 11th, the event occurred in New York City, there was an attack upon the World Trade Center buildings, and then the difference there is exactly what you think the mechanism for the destruction of those buildings were and who you thought was responsible. In the same respect, if you're a birther, there's actually an awful lot that you agree with respect to non-birthers. This person, called Barack Obama, was elected to be president on a particular day. They were inaugurated on another day. It seems that you share a whole bunch of facts there. And once again, the disagreement is about mechanisms and who is really responsible. So I just don't see how there is a salient difference between the example of an explanatory conspiracy theory she's really keen upon, which is 9/11 conspiracy theories, and these counterfact theories, the birther hypotheses, which don't seem to be all that different from 9/11 truth theories, truth be told.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there's a difference. I don't know if that means there actually is one. It's possibly a difference of emphasis more than actual substance. I don't know. I mean, like in the case of 9/11, I think what she's sort of saying is there is this event, and then people went out of their way to determine an official version of what caused that event, and then along comes the conspiracy theory opposing that official explanation of events. Whereas in the case of Obama, there wasn't an investigation into how Obama became president. He just did. And then people are coming along afterwards and not and saying, well, actually, he probably shouldn't have because of these reasons. Now, I don't know if that's actually a relevant difference in terms of how you define conspiracy theories, because when the actual conspiracy theories come in, they are still pretty much explanatory. It's explaining how we could have been taken in by this person who wasn't actually eligible to become president and how he could have been put in that position in the first place. So in terms of the actual conspiracy theory stuff, I don't know if it makes a difference, but possibly it seemed like there's a feeling that there's a difference. Maybe there isn't, but possibly that's where she's coming from.
I think that feeling depends on how you describe the event, because you might go, look, one reason why people have conspiracy theories about 9/11 is the feeling, how could America, the superpower, be attacked on its mainland? In the same respect, you might go, look, how can America, a largely white supremacist, white nationalist nation, allow a black man to be elected president? And once you describe the two conspiracy theories with that particular type of motivating question, then I think you end up going, well, actually, both of them are about trying to explain why an extraordinary event occurred, which means I think the difference is what's the motivating question that brings you to the allegation of conspiracy. And I just don't see that there's a salient difference when you ask the question in that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think, I mean, I agree with you there, and I do think that a lot of it's just sort of how you choose to present these certain conspiracy theories. And I think actually at this point in the paper, having read, I'm not sure, did we, I think we might have skipped over this in our discussion just now. She actually puts forward her specific definition of what a counterfact conspiracy theory is a CFCT is a counter-narrative account about a significant portion of reality, asserting counterfacts, knowledge of which has been suppressed by a conspiracy of powerful actors, usually for their own sinister purposes. And as you sort of got towards this definition, I started thinking, well, I mean, hang on, as you've described them, counterfact conspiracy theories do a bit of explaining, and explanatory conspiracy theories do offer some alternative facts. But Feldman addresses this point herself straight away. She does say, in practice, it may be hard to draw clear lines between ECTs and CFCTs, since the latter do provide some explanation and the former do put forward some counterfacts. But she goes on to say that while actual theories might contain elements of both, there's a clear contrast between idealized ECTs and CFCTs. I'm just going to, I find it harder to read. It's easier to write, easier to read down, but actually saying it out, I think the acronyms are a little more clumsy, so I'm just going to go over them. The purpose of an explanatory conspiracy theory is explanation of a significant event, but that of the counterfact conspiracy theory is assertion of counterfacts. Counterfact conspiracy theories, the explanatory role played by invoking the conspiracy is generally confined to the suppression of the counterfacts, while conspiracy is a critical part of the explanation of uncontested facts about events for explanatory conspiracy theories. And yeah, again, it sort of kind of feels like this counterfact phenomenon she's talking of is possibly a bigger thing, part of which involves a conspiracy theory that explains why we don't all believe these alternative facts, but it's not. It's not a separate species of conspiracy theory. It's conspiracy theory that happens to be applied to a particular kind of claim, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm still not buying that distinction. I'm just not buying it at all.
Well, she tries to distinguish between them also by going on to say, to look at what she claims are differences between how the two different kinds of theories, how explanatory conspiracy theories and how counterfactual conspiracy theories develop differently as people start to challenge them. And she says that explanatory conspiracy theories will develop as people challenge the validity of this theory. They will continue to attack the official theory. And show that the official theory is inadequate to explain these events, which is why their explanatory conspiracy theory is the right one, whereas a counterfactual conspiracy theory, when challenged, will attack these accepted facts, and then the evidence that's presented to try and prove the accepted version of facts, and then that usually ends up by attacking the evidence of that evidence and the evidence of that evidence, and so on and so on. And so she goes back to more examples, Bertha's UFO theorists, and then throws Holocaust deniers into the mix as well. And in all three of those cases, she thinks that what characterizes them is basically a refusal to accept evidence that goes contrary to the counterfacts that they're trying to put forwards. So she says that in the case of Bertha's, documents are dismissed as doctored or forged, experts trashed as participants in the conspiracy, normal standards and methods of proof are found inadequate, though quite lenient standards are used to support the counterfact claims.
And I would say there's at least some 9/11 truthers. I'm not going to get into the weeds of particular 9/11 truth hypotheses, but there are at least some 9/11 truthers who are doing exactly the same thing as well. And yet her benchmark for an ECT is a 9/11 truth hypothesis, and yet I would be able to show you that there are at least some truthers who dismiss documents as doctored or forged, are going around trashing experts and claiming they're involved in the conspiracy, and then using strange standards and methods of proof, such as going, well, a jury would convict on this case. Yeah, but it's a scientific standard here. We're not using jury standards here. So, once again, I'm just not seeing the distinction.
Well, yes. She does, though, go on to talk about Holocaust deniers doing something similar, in that she says, deniers dispute witness statements as deliberate lies or inadvertent error, challenge historical documents as faked, tampered with, or insufficient as evidence. Physical evidence, such as the dimensions of piles of bodies and of gas chambers, is analysed to support the denier's contention. Documents and photographs are scrutinised to demonstrate forgery or tampering. Notably, evidence in support of denialists is not subject to such scrutiny and standards of proof. And that does seem to be one of the things she comes back to a few times, the idea that they... The conspiracy theorists don't subject their own side to nearly as much scrutiny as what they're attacking. And again, that's something we've seen all over the place in all sorts of conspiracy theories, and does not seem to be unique to counterfactual conspiracy theories at all.
And also, notably, is also a feature we find with defenders of official theories. When you take it, there's a distinction between conspiracy theories and official theories. Holders of official theories will end up doing the same thing as well. So not only is there, I don't think there's a distinction here between ECTs and CFCTs, I don't think the distinctions that she's putting forward are particularly useful for distinguishing between conspiracy theories and non-conspiracy theories.
So she goes on to sort of show that this tactic of attacking sort of the evidence, and then the evidence for the evidence, and the evidence for the evidence for the evidence, could be applied to literally any fact at all. She, says something as basic as the cat is on the mat. If you were really determined to, you could just keep refusing to accept that fact and any evidence for that fact, and possibly end up offering explanations for why people want you to believe that the cat is on the mat when in fact it isn't, and so on and so forth. And says that because this chain of reasoning could be applied to anything and doesn't really get you anywhere. She says, this leaves less room for reasoned exchange with counterfact conspiracy theory proponents than with explanatory conspiracy theory proponents. While explanatory conspiracy theory proponents accept as factual generally recognized facts, counterfact conspiracy theory proponents do not within the domain of their topic. The overlap of accepted facts by explanatory conspiracy theories allows for genuine argument about explanatory adequacy of those facts. Counterfact conspiracy theory proponents, however, typically present a set of counterfacts at odds with generally accepted facts, though they accept similar facts on similar evidence in domains they do not contest. They cannot thus claim to be using different, incommensurable standards of evidence, since they are not doing so across the board. And once again, I'm pretty sure lots of conspiracy theories do that, and it's not at all specific to ones that are proposing counterfacts, or at least a whole lot of explanatory conspiracies do present alternative facts as part of the theory, and then end up doing these exact same sorts of things. And then she rounds off by saying, because most of the facts that counterfact conspiracy theory proponents accept outside the contested domain are the same as those held by ordinary believers, the counterfact conspiracy theory could not be part of an incommensurable worldview. Incommensurability would rule out overlap of this extent.
And this is the point where I go,
yes.
I think that the distinction she's trying to make really does evaporate here, because she seems to be both saying, look, there's going to be some overlap between these theories, and there's also not going to be much overlap at all. And yet I take it that if you are a birther, then once again, you agree that Barack Obama, whether or not he was legitimately, was elected to the presidency on a particular date and inaugurated on another date. And that seems to be a salient set of facts that people who are birthers and non-birthers are going to agree to. Unless, of course, you're a birther who believes that actually the entire election and inauguration was some kind of hologrammatic thing foisted upon the people. So I'm not quite sure where the incommensurability actually lies in this account. It seems to be it must be stuff which is salient to the conspiracy theory, But once it becomes salient to the conspiracy theory, you seem to be offering explanations as to why people believe one thing or another thing. At which point, once again, we're talking about ECTs and not CFCTs. So I'm just not seeing this distinction as being a live one at all.
No, well, furthering her argument, she leads from this to say conspiracy theorizing does not point to possession of an incommensurable worldview, but does suggest possession of defective epistemic character. She says epistemic virtues are traits of good cognitive character and include, for example, open-mindedness, dealing fairly and honestly with evidence, and using responsible or reliable methods of evidence gathering and reasoning. In their reasoning schema, we find dogmatic refusal to entertain counter-evidence by unfair and dishonest deployment of evidence and standards, fallacious and unreliable reasoning, and close-mindedness. This is not irrationality, but epistemic vice.
Now, I just want to note, it is interesting that you went traits and not trays.
Yeah, what does is there a standard pronunciation? I've always said
I think it entirely depends on the academic discipline you belong to. So when I was doing anthropology, it was always trays. When I was doing philosophy, it was always traits. And I just find it really, really fascinating that depending on who you're talking to, they pronounce the same word in a radically different way. Where's the T gone in trays, Josh? Where's the T?
It's just gone away. It's disappeared. They don't want you to know where the T has gone.
And you mean hey don't want you to know?
That's you're blowing my mind. Stop it. Stop it, because we've actually reached the conclusion of this paper. The concluding paragraph reads as follows. Diagnosing a theory as a counterfact theory goes a significant distance in suggesting the futility in engaging the theory as evidence-based, and indeed presumptively supports assessing it and its proponents as epistemic defective. Epistemic evaluation might be beside the point, however, when dealing with counterfact conspiracy theory proponents. Epistemic considerations relate to the way beliefs connect to evidence and at least indirectly truth or likelihood of truth. While counterfact theorists purport truth, perhaps the kind of truth we should take them to mean is not factual but expressive. The theory is quote-unquote true because it expresses a deeply held worldview, a subjective set of connected associations, values, and meanings. It's possible to take notice of the expressive truth of the theory without engaging in futile exchanges about facts and counterfacts. The point of engaging such theorists is therapeutic rather than epistemic. By engaging sincere counterfact theorists on their underlying expressive truth, perhaps the roots of their views can be exposed, allowing them the opportunity to understand what they're expressing through their views, and allowing outsiders to understand the meanings and values roiling in the body politic. Which again kind of sounds like it could apply to just about any conspiracy theory. It does seem like in many cases of explanatory conspiracy theories, people are sort of expressing their worldview. So, yeah, I mean, my overall impression, I thought, I don't know, it felt like there was an interesting point or two in there, but I don't know that they were points that justified diagnosing an entirely new kind of conspiracy theory. The distinction between the explanatory and counterfact conspiracy theories didn't really seem to work, and it really, I mean, it certainly feels like you could, if you wanted, fold one into the other. You could say that counterfact conspiracy theories are sort of a kind of explanatory ones where this bit of explanation is, this bit of assertion is lumped in with the explanation, or conversely, you could say that, go the other way and say that explanatory theories, they're just this kind of theory that happens to place more emphasis on the explanatory side of things. But in both cases, you end up just talking about conspiracy theories. It's an interesting angle to look at them, but I don't see that it's actually doing what she thinks it's doing, and carving off a whole new kind of conspiracy theory. And I mean, it seems like the whole purpose of the exercise is what we've seen in a lot of the earlier papers of people trying to say, okay, but this kind of conspiracy theory, this kind is the kind that you can actually disregard. And I do appreciate the fact that she at least concludes by saying this kind of conspiracy theory is probably not epistemically virtuous, rather than straight out saying this kind of conspiracy theory is irrational to hold, full stop. I thought that was good. But as we've seen in a lot of other cases, it doesn't really doesn't really work out, this attempt to try and mark out a particular kind of conspiracy theories as ones you can disregard or at least be suspicious of straight away. And it did, though, remind me a little bit. I'm not sure if I might have even just been getting myself a little bit confused, but the idea of talking about epistemic vice and virtue rather than rationality or irrationality reminded me of some of the other conclusions people have come to. I'm just confusing myself with the pragmatic rejection business we talked about before. It sounded a little bit like she was saying you could pragmatically reject these ones even if you're not doing so in terms of pure rationality. But
well, you also, it is of a feather with Sunstein and Vermeule and their idea of, in quotes, the crippled epistemology of conspiracy theorists. And we'll see a similar kind of conclusion with the work of Qassam Qasim, who we'll be talking about at some point in the future, who also takes an epistemic vice approach to diagnosing the problem of conspiracy theories. So it is something which has come up in the past, and it definitely will come up again in the future. My worry with this paper is that it seems she's going, look, some conspiracy theories simply disagree about conclusions. So we have some evidence, and people then disagree as to how we get to the conclusion. Was it a conspiracy? Was it a non-conspiracy? Some conspiracy theories also add in, there's also disinformation out there, information which is designed to distract you from the right reasoning to get to the conclusion you ought to believe. And she's taking it that these conspiracy theories which invoke disinformation are separate from standard explanatory conspiracy theories, and also it's a vice to suggest disinformation is out there in the world. And that seems like a problem because we know disinformation is out there in the world. We know it's been used to cover up conspiracies in the past. So going, look, it's a vice to suggest that disinformation is out there kind of ignores the fact that it is out there. And this just seems like a very bad recommendation, given what we actually know about our political cultures.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of understand why you might start down this track. I mean, the paper itself starts with Keeley's definition, a proposed explanation of some historical event or events in terms of the significant causal agency of conspirators, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, yeah, it is an interesting point to say, well, hang on, an explanation of historical events. Well, what about your Holocaust deniers? They're not offering an alternate explanation for the Holocaust. They're saying that it didn't happen at all. And that does seem a little bit at odds with it, although possibly when you really look at it, I mean, the conspiracy theory side of it is explaining historical events, the history of why we have these beliefs that we have. So it's a little bit, it's not as immediately obvious in the way that 9/11 stuff is, where we're explaining the destruction of the World Trade Center towers, and that's kind of stated right up front, whereas the Holocaust deniers will be talking about the Holocaust never happened, and the historical explainy stuff is kind of implied. So I think maybe there's a difference of emphasis, perhaps, or in the same way, or at least analogous to, who was it who was talking just recently about certain things pointing out salience rather than, the whole benevolent versus malignant thing is pointing out salient conspiracy theories, but without actually being a definition of conspiracy theory and so on.
I believe that was Lee in pragmatic rejection. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've been over too many of these papers now, and they're starting to blur a little for me, and I'm forgetting where I've heard things before in the past. But it seemed possibly analogous to something like that. It's pointing out an interesting feature of them, but not an interesting feature that's actually that defines them, perhaps. And that is all I have to say.
And that's all I have to say as well.
So, yeah, I mean, we keep saying interesting, and I'm going to say it again, an interesting paper. Don't really agree with kind of where a lot of it goes, but it got me thinking. not wanting to sound patronising or anything. It genuinely did. And I do appreciate a paper that keeps things short and to the point.
Well, we won't have many of those in future.
Oh, lovely. Anyway, so that's the end of this instalment of Conspiracy Theory Masterpiece Theatre. We're going to say goodbye to you shortly, but if you're a patron, we're going to say hello again to you very, very shortly after that, as we record our bonus episode. And this time we've got... It's not a news roundup for once, but it is a listicle. What are we looking at?
We are looking at 10 things you're not supposed to know. I should have made that into a 10 things I don't like about you joke or some kind of Heath Ledger reference. 10 things you're not supposed to know about how I hate you. I have no idea how this is going to work.
No, probably wouldn't have. Best you didn't. But yes, if you want to know what these 10 things you're not supposed to know are, then stay tuned
10 things you would hate to find out about. There we go. That's what it should have been. 10 things you'd hate to find out about.
Something like that, yes. Save that for the title when you publish it.
I'll have forgotten about that in 10 minutes' time.
Oh, well. As for what these 10 things are, only our patrons will know. And if you are a patron, good luck to you. But if you're not a patron, all is not lost, because you can become one by going to Patreon and searching for the podcasters to the Guide to the Conspiracy and signing yourself up. And if you do, that would be just peachy, because it lets us pay for things like recording gear and podcast service hosting and all of that business.
And Josh is going to need a new microphone, sir. I am
going to need a new microphone, yes, in events totally irrelevant to the recording of this podcast. I am going to be changing jobs soon. And the microphone I have been using up until now is actually part of my work gear that I use for recording stuff at work. So I'll be handing that one back. And yes, grabbing us a new one.
Yeah, Josh has been showing a middle finger to the man by using his work equipment for his hobbies.
Yep, probably shouldn't have said that, but what are they going to do, fire me? Now, if you're not wanting to become a patron, well, I mean, that's just fine, really. You've listened this far, so bless you all the same. But patron and non-patron alike right now, I think you're both going to simply hear me saying goodbye.
I like the impression you said you've just implied there are two patrons. You both, the two of you, about to hear Josh say
patrons
goodbye.
And non-patrons both.
And for me to go, I actually don't have a Marty Feldman reference to make, apart from Abby Normal.
The Podcaster's Guide to the Conspiracy is Josh Addison and me, Dr. M.R.X. Dentith. You can contact us at podcastconspiracy@gmail.com, and please do consider supporting the podcast via our Patreon.
And remember, the truth is out there, but not quite where you think you left it.